Good evening. Call the April 24th FinCom meeting to order. You could stand for the pledge.
I
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Mike?
Okay, in your packets, you have the local receipts that was asked for last meeting through March.
Yep.
So if you look at the receipts, you'll see we're doing good. So far, we've collected $266,755 more than last year at the same time. The major sources of that are investment income, motor vehicle excise, and other charges for services. And if you look at the second sheet, it just gives you a comparison of budgeted versus actual. And so right now, we're at 124.3% of budgeted with our receipts. And any questions? And you have a new estimated operating revenue and expenditure sheet, which incorporates all the budgets that you voted on to date, which is all of them.
Paul?
Of that so-called surplus, 43,000 shows there, how much of that remains to be eaten up by the articles on town meeting?
We'll have to look at that. We could also leave it pending what's going to happen with the state budget, but in October, we'd have to use
I
it.
know we have to
Yeah,
use it.
but between now and then, we could leave it just to have a cushion in case the budgets come in.
Yeah.
State House, we get less than we have, but when we go through the town meeting articles, we'll look at how much we're going to use up.
Yeah.
I know one of them would be 30,000 of that for the planning department that they need to do a new master plan.
Takes care, that goes,
Yeah.
takes care of that.
And then you have the budget, and we have copies there for all the people in the audience tonight. And then the worksheets. So 15 is your, so want to do some of the articles in the meantime?
Sure.
Separation, under special town meeting, separation expenses. We don't have a need for anything under that, so that would be Article 2. We could move no action on that,
Article 2 on the special.
Is that on the special or
on the special,
on the special?
Article 2.
All I gotta do is find the cheat sheet.
I don't know if we have, oh, no, it's right there. In the
Yeah.
cheat sheet.
I'll move no action. What article is, I seen the cheat sheet too.
It's in the
Here it is.
beginning.
Got it. Separation expenses. Mr. Chairman, I
Tom?
move no action on Article 2 of the special town meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to move no action on Article 2 of the special town meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous?
Operating budget supplements, if we can wait till next Monday. I talked to the superintendent today, and he's still working on his number, so be better if we wait until Monday, and hopefully they can have a more definitive number.
Operating budget supplements. I was waiting for the school.
The next article on the special is what was talked about on Monday night with the superintendent to allow contracts in excess of 3 years. And that's all, that would be procurement contracts, not employment contracts.
Did you say 4? Article 4?
That's Article 9
Oh, all right.
on the special.
I see,
Rick?
I see that it's including the library now as well.
That was always on there.
Was it?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Aaron?
I recall hearing about some of the benefits of being able to extend contracts beyond 3 years for pricing, for consistency, from a couple of departments around town. Remind me again of any inherent risks involved with this? Is there a downside to this? Was there a pro and con that we were weighing here, or is this?
I don't recall.
The only downside would be if you signed a bad contract, but you could do that with a 3-year contract too. I know the superintendent feels he could get a much better contract for the buses if it was more than 3 years, is what he talked about.
But throughout our discussions on this, we haven't heard any real strong anti-sentiment from anyone?
No.
I don't recall
I don't
that.
recall anybody saying that.
Amy?
Just kind of going along those same lines, is there any kind of history on why we set it at 3 whenever it got set to begin with?
That's state law.
Okay.
This is new, but state law before was 3 years. Anything above 3 years, right now, if we don't do this, right? If we want to do a contract greater than 3 years, you could do it, but you have to go to town meeting and get approval to do it.
Individually, contract by contract?
Each one, yes.
All right, so this prevents that from
Yep.
being that kind of administrative burden.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's no limit. So if Dr. Byetta wants to sign a 10-year contract, he could?
Right now, your only limit would be you can't sign a contract for greater than 20 years under state law.
Or 0 to
So
20.
the state has revised their limitation from 3 to 20?
No, it's always,
Oh, okay.
it's 3 without town meeting approval. Anything above 3 to 20 is town meeting approval.
Interesting.
Still in the J.D. Drew range.
So,
Paul?
Definition of terms. Goods is clear, for goods and services. By services, we do not mean salaries or wages or things of this.
No, it would be like
It's services of people coming in from the outside.
right, like an elevator service contract or
Yeah,
HVAC
that's
service.
That's the legal definition. When I'm concerned that if services can be said, teachers
Consultant.
performs a service, then all of a sudden we could have 5 or 6 year contracts with teachers and so forth, which might or not be good, but I'm sort of against it. I think people, contracts with our unions and so forth should be, I think the 3 should remain.
I agree with that.
No problem with
Yeah.
if this is if services is what you say it is.
it is.
So it's just really pertains to vendors.
Correct.
It's really a vendor
Yeah.
contract.
Well, as long as that's legally clear.
Well,
in
what
this.
does Mass General Law C-30B? Does that relate to vendors?
Chapter 30B is
Yeah.
procurement contracts.
Procurement contracts.
Okay,
So that clears it up right there.
Okay.
that's helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess the question really is, are we comfortable leaving it open-ended, or would we prefer to see something that said a maximum of 10 years?
Can we change the article? I don't know if you can change the wording in the article.
Probably put a term limit on it.
Yeah.
That's an amendment.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly concerned about that.
Again, you sign a bus contract, go back a couple of years when gasoline went from close to $4 a gallon to within 6 months down to like $1. But you signed your contract
Yeah, you're tied in.
at the $4, and now you're tied into it for 20 years. I have a problem with that. So to have it open-ended to 20, I have a problem. More than 3, less than 10? More than 3, less than 7? But 20 is, to me, is someone, you know,
Well, it's a school committee article.
Right, exactly.
They should amend it. I have no problem with being in excess of 3 years, especially with busing contracts.
I
Right.
agree.
but open-ended.
Yeah, I understand the open-ended part, but I'd have to hope that we're smart enough not to sign a gas contract at $7 a gallon for 20 years, and hope that it doesn't go down to 4. So I'm going to make the motion, and we can do whatever,
Yep.
so we can get it off the table. I make a motion that we recommend Article 9 as written, in the special town meeting warrant.
As written, did you say, Tom?
Yeah, the way it is.
Second.
I was waiting to write.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend Article 9 of the special town meeting as written for contracts in excess of 3 years.
Now,
Further discussion?
yes, I think a number of members of this committee would like some upper limit on it. We can move that ourselves. We make the initial motion, as long as the moderator removes that that would be within the scope of the article. We could move it as we had amended it, if we wanted to,
At the meeting?
at the meeting. Somebody, I mean, you.
So do we agree on a
Well, but
limit?
we had, and then,
We'd have to have
then
a discussion.
his motion changes from as written to, if I move an amendment,
Yeah. In other words, let's say we don't agree with then you will have an amendment to what I just said as written, and the amendment will be 5 years or whatever we choose.
yeah, I mean, that's, if everybody is comfortable with this and as open-ended.
Yeah.
Leave it, I'm willing
Yeah.
to leave it that way. If not, I'll move a number.
Okay.
Yeah,
And we could, then we are amending it, and it would, and
Yeah.
the initial motion, you would read it, and then you would explain what the
Yeah.
change is,
Yeah.
and that it's a FinCom change.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with that approach.
Yeah. Okay.
I just feel that
So
an
let me do-
open-ended.
Rather than,
unlimited is-
let me withdraw my motion, and let's amend it. Let's do it once.
Yep,
And
All right.
what's the consensus? Would we like 5 years?
I
Alan?
would say so.
Or 10?
10? Will we?
I'm wondering if, it's unfortunate, I know the school committee is busy tonight with, they're trying to hire a new principal and having a meeting, so no one's here to ask, but I wonder if they picked, I mean, if this is their,
Greater than 3 years?
I wonder if they picked 20 as with a purpose, or with it's a high number that we'll never approach?
Well, I don't think they picked.
They
the
didn't
number.
pick 20, it just.
That's a state
defaults to
number.
20.
If the state says you can't, you can go as high as 20.
If you
I
take
think-
away the 3.
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
just wanted to get over 3. I think, what I understand.
They just didn't want to be limited by the
Superintendent
3.
wanted to get greater than 3.
So then the state probably set 20 as a very high number
Yes.
to allow for room to come down.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And 20 would be crazy. In
Right.
this economy, anybody's economy, it would be crazy. 20 years.
So
what
are you
is the
suggesting we
consensus?
table,
10 years? 5 years? What's the consensus?
That's too little.
I think,
10?
10? 10 a good number?
I think 7 is
I
a
think we
pretty
need, I think we need to.
good margin. I think
Put this
7 is a
on
wide
hold.
margin.
Okay, then why don't I just withdraw my...
Stop right there.
I'll withdraw my
We need
motion
to-
for
we'll
now,
come
and
back.
then after our open hearing, we can...
So do,
So I withdrew my motion.
I just cross
Cross it off like you never
I second the withdrawal.
I can do that.
do I close out the regular meeting, or?
We have to
Yes,
close
yeah.
out this.
Put it on hold.
Well, you
You make a
we go
motion.
adjourn,
Adjourn.
Motion, do we suspend, or?
go to special town. Go
It's,
to-
it's
Hearing.
7:16, so we're a minute late. Need to adjourn this meeting. to open up our
Public hearing.
public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn the regular hearing and go into the public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mike?
If I could, just, how I do that all the time. I need Shane. Let me reopen that. So the budget that you voted on Monday night, I just show a pie chart to show the proposed budget. Your fixed and shared expenses are $14,598,847, or 24.896% of the budget. The balance of general government accounts are $12,762,000 and $12,762,068, or 21.763. And the fixed general government expenses are $448,655, or 0.765% of the budget. And miscellaneous town offices and boards, $5,210, or 0.009%. The Norton Public Schools, $29,622,648, or 50.516%. And Southeastern Regional and Bristol Agricultural, $1,202,402, or 2.05% of the budget. And just so people understand that may be watching at home, what fixed and shared expenses are. Fixed and shared expenses are debt, our maturing debt, and interest on debt. Then the employee benefits, which are retirement, health insurance, and retiree health insurance. Our unemployment costs, and then fuel and insurances. So that makes up the $14,598,847. So the fixed and shared went up $404,621 roughly. After the fixed and shared, you have the general government, which would include all town departments, including the library. And we'll get to that.
We get to decide, I guess, what the extent is. And if we decide too little, allow too little, it takes to court. I'm not getting any guidance from you, Mr. Costa, as to we need 3 trailers, here's where they need to be. As they are structures, they have to be
And
getting no guidance. So if you want to throw it to us, we'll say.
so the total of balance of the general government was the $12,762,068, or a $525,671 increase. And the next that was mentioned is general government expenses. So these are items that are utilized by all the departments: reserve fund, legal services, tax title foreclosure, elections, the Southeastern Regional Economic Development, the town report, postage, sale of weights and measures, street lighting, and sanitary landfill. And then the smaller budgets that I referred to, your budget, memorial, vets, zoning board, those are the miscellaneous town offices that make up that $5,210. And then, as I said, the schools and the regionals.
And based on this process, we again, to balance our budget, are relying on free cash.
We're relying on $600,000 of free cash. We've also, this year, stretched our limits on budgeting very close for some of our expenses, like the health insurance and our insurance, and also going to the limits on increasing some of our revenue projections. We've gone up on our local receipts, for example, the auto excise by $500,000. And, the auditors were at the selectmen's meeting a few meetings ago and wanted to compliment everybody on maintaining a good reserve. So we really have to keep up with that, maintain a 10% reserve in the town between our stabilization, our capital, our free cash, and our OPEB.
Go away one night without talking about OPEB.
And despite everything, to our best efforts at this point, our budget for fiscal year 2020 will be $1,000,001 less than what all the departments across the town request.
That's right.
So we're using free cash, and we're not even getting to the point that all the all the department managers wanted for each of their departments.
But that's true, and I've met with all the departments, all of the town departments, the library, council on aging, schools, and I met with the superintendent last week. And, everyone isn't getting what they obviously wanted, but
Right.
can work with what they've been presented with for now.
Aaron?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to continue or expound on your comment a little and note that during this budget request season, as people have come before us, I don't think we've seen anything that we would have considered an unreasonable request.
For the most part.
For the most part, fair. Yeah.
There was one that
We could go debate the
yeah,
real
okay.
thing, but for the most part, people who are coming before us are trying to staff overworked departments, right? Keep up with,
replace equipment.
Try to meet state guidelines to get, the library trying to make hours to be able to get better aid from the state and
Yep.
that kind of thing. And it all just kind of makes sense, and we're not able to do it.
Paul?
To just go along with what you're saying, is that these requests from departments where we couldn't fulfill them were all basically premised on, with one exception perhaps, level funding. We know, and the police chief and the fire chief were very clear when they were here.
Services? Funding?
Pardon?
Services or funding? When you said level funding or level services?
Level services. What you needed to fund level services. And they were, both the police chief and the fire chief were very clear that we would be able to do this only if some adjustment could be made to overtime in addition in the fall.
Right.
Per usual.
As they are now, there will be some problems, could be some great problems in providing level services.
for a full year?
In the same way, the library, and this, it's not in the same way. The library is understandably anxious ultimately someday to get back to the full 50 hours, which is full certification. There are steps forward this year and that we'll get the 45 hours with what we've done, which is very good. We'll get a little more aid from the state and we'll have what I like to call partial certification, but I don't think that's an official term. But you only get the full if you can go to 50 hours a week. We're not there yet. Yet the use of the library has clearly been demonstrated to us growing at a very, very rapid rate. This leads to a whole set of other problems, and they're not based on level services per se as to a goal to get back to something we once had and haven't had for a good many years. In fact, we were, as most of you know, we were decertified for a period of time, and managed to get back on that one at least. So, while we can say this is level services, or not level funding, level services budget, in many ways it isn't, or could very well not be. It'll depend a lot on what we get in the fall and how we can perhaps amend any and all budgets as they need them, as they need it.
Right.
Because what we have now does not really provide that, but that's all the money we've got right now, and we can't do more till we know about free cash. We can't do more until we know about local receipts, which you don't know until the books close on June 30th. There's a lot of that sort of thing that we just don't know yet. The state hasn't finalized its aid. You know, they've sent us various projection sheets, but until they all get it done, which is usually either on June 30th or more likely on July 30th, we don't really know.
Right.
So I think this is the best we can do now. But I would like to make it clear that this is not in itself providing, as far as I can see it, really providing level services for next year. We'll have to do some adding, changing, amending. Hopefully we can in the fall. But without that, this is not it. This is a decrease. But this is all we have, I think, in good faith. We have to come in with what we think will be a balanced budget, and what the town manager in particular thinks would provide a balanced budget.
Right.
And I think this is what we got, and not much else that we can do. Am I happy with it? No. I don't know that many of us are happy with it, but this is where we're at.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it's very simple math. You either continue to cut expenses, or you somehow figure a way to grow revenue. It's that simple. And until we do one or the other, and it's hard to justify cutting more expenses when you've already gone through years and years and years and years of cutting expenses. So it's hard to justify, let's keep doing that model.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
That's our
But-
dilemma.
It seems like we're faced with what's becoming a rather urgent and immediate need from a revenue perspective. And we are not in a position to flip a switch tomorrow and have a money tree out back. So,
I'm still looking for that money.
I am too, let me tell you. But I think that, we really need to have maybe a very frank conversation about an override, a fully backed by the people who sit in this building, Proposition 2.5 override. Because until we dig ourselves out of this hole, and it's a hole that we're still in after 10 years of economic growth.
That's the scary part.
Right.
That
If something.
you've had the growth.
Right.
And
If something catastrophic were to happen to our economy in the next 6 months, we would be in intense trouble next fiscal year.
Amy
The
was,
economy is gangbusters, to quote a wise man, if not now, when? Wink time.
as Amy was saying, fully backed by people that sit in this building. As someone that sits in this building, I can tell you, we don't have a say in overrides. That's
That's
a
a-
political issue.
That's a
But
political.
obviously, I mean, if there's an override and there's more money, it makes our job a lot easier, so.
Right.
But
I,
we don't.
not to put words in Amy's mouth, but I think what some of us may be seeing is a lack of direction from the people that are elected in this town. Either come out and say, I'm fully against an override and don't talk to me, or come out and say, yes, we need to correct this situation so we're not in it year in and year out. And I think there's silence in that whole thing. And I get it. You know, if you say you're for an override, you just lost 50% of the vote. And if you say you're against it, you just lost 50% of the vote.
It seems like in conversation, everyone understands that practically, there's just no other way around it, it's needed. Nobody wants to be the one to deliver that news to the people.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I would just say that it'd be useful for anybody, not just members of this committee, because most of them know it. Go back and read the opening report of the Finance Committee before the
Go
budget.
back 15 years.
Go back 15 years and rewrite every year. There are all sorts of years where we said, we need an override.
Every one of them.
We need an override. This is why we need an override.
I wish I would have brought some of them with me.
This committee has
Seriously,
said
because-
in its opening, that
Absolutely.
thing that we
Yeah.
do. Not every year, but many, many years.
Right.
Well-
Paul, I think part of what we're saying is that's obviously not reaching a lot of people.
You know what reaches a lot of people
Right.
is, at town meeting, everybody is for something, okay, because their peers are sitting around. But when you're in that booth by yourself, and you do the mental calculation, and it says, oh my God, $300 a year more? No. Even though you're for it, and you probably know you need it, it's a matter of economics. And I don't care if every selectman and every board jumps up and says we need an override. It's the people, the taxpayers, who are the ones that say yes or no.
Right.
If-
Right.
So if they need to be convinced, who convinces them?
You know how you convince them? We stop using free cash,
Exactly.
okay? You stop using free cash, and boy, do you get convinced pretty quick, okay? Because when you dial 911, you get Attleboro, okay? And when you dial 100, you may not get the superintendent. You may get some answering service that says, we're out of the office right now, but we'll get back to you when we come back. That's the problem, okay?
Sir?
But we're fortunate enough to have free cash to use.
Hi, Tim Long from Village Way. Just had one or two quick questions. Council on Aging expended in fiscal 2018 $68,000. What's being recommended is $90,000, which is an increase of $22,000. And I know we're talking about how tight things are, so I'm wondering if my math is right, this is more than a 20% increase. So in these really tight times, what is the town getting for that large increase?
Getting
Okay,
a person
part-time
that
hire?
runs a senior center that gets about 1,000 people in there every
Part-time
month.
person.
I'm sorry, so, all right, we're going to get a part-time person that we didn't have last fiscal
That's
year?
exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a department that we recognize to be very overworked.
Well, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it, I'm just wondering what it is.
There's a one, there's
yeah,
one
that's
person,
right.
there's a one person in there running a department that not only not handles seniors, but
Yeah.
handles walk-ins for for taxes. You run out of
Correct me if
fuel.
I'm-
You run out of fuel, you pick up the phone, you go to the senior center, and she tries to get you some money because you don't have any money to pay your fuel bill.
If I'm correct, that's Beth Rossi, correct?
Right.
Yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she's by herself.
Yeah.
It's a one-man show, a one-female show.
What was, the-
That's the major increase.
Yeah, This is a part-time addition.
Yeah.
all right.
Really, what it's doing is just
Helping-
supporting, really, it's supporting the demographic shift in population.
Yes.
If you really get
To
down
to service more people.
Okay, the other question I had real quick was fiscal 2018, we spent $26,000 on recreation, and this year the recommendation is to go to $42,000, so that's an increase of $16,000. Just curious what we're getting for 16,000.
A good chunk of that is some recommended improvements to, or not improvements, I'm sorry, repairs to facilities at Everett Leonard.
Everett Leonard
Everett Leonard.
Field.
And that other,
And
Girl
now we
Scout.
bought the Edict.
Yeah.
Town just purchased the Edict.
That's part of that purchase?
Which is
that-
right down the street from you.
Oh, yeah.
Because you live down the street from me.
I can't wait to get in there. All right, yeah, those are my two questions. Just wondering what those items were.
Glad someone
Thank
came
you.
to answer a question. I'm
Thanks.
shocked.
Thanks for coming.
We're like the house
had a visitor.
that gets
Came
one
up.
kid at Halloween.
Can I ask a
We're like,
question?
come in, we have candy.
Come anytime. Can I ask a question about Edith Reed, actually, as a part of the public hearing?
go,
Um,
I guess.
Do you have to come over here and look over there?
I'm just staying in my seat because I'm tired. Is there any consideration, maybe in the fall, for tree work back there? Not that I've been back there, but my backyard backs up to
Oh,
there.
it does it?
Yes, so there's a lot
Okay.
of tree damage back there. A number of very large pine trees are down
I
on
remember when they
the
came from
obstacle course.
from a while back, right? The bad storm we had.
Yeah, we've had several bad storms, and there are numerous
Okay.
trees that are in bad shape back
All
there.
right, I'll see what we can do. Yeah.
I'll loan you my chainsaw.
They're a little bigger than you, me, and a chainsaw are gonna be.
What could go
I
wrong?
think.
Oh, yeah.
Amy, is that on Edith Reed? Is that at Edith Reed?
At Edith Reed, yes.
In years.
So how do we can close it, ask any more questions? And
Is there no more discussion? I'll move to adjourn and return to town.
Are, anybody else who wants to ask any more questions on
Anybody?
the open hearing here?
Cricket.
Not.
Seeing none, I'd like to close. Paul?
I move that we adjourn what do we call this?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
The public
go
hearing.
back to regular meeting.
And return to our regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
to say, to come to the board and say, I have Board of Health and.
Okay,
Let's go.
back to the special.
Now we're back to the,
Special.
Article 9.
Right back where we were.
Right, so we were in the middle of
Oh,
the
yeah.
conversation.
we didn't get anywhere, Mom.
Whatever your preference is, if you have like a suggestion of years, or if you want me to go back to the superintendent first,
I would,
We seem to be
Would it be a problem
spitballing,
if
why
you
not?
voted on it at night of the town meeting? In other words, if he gets back to the superintendent of schools and they,
Well,
or
couldn't
get
we-
one for Monday?
Couldn't we do it Monday?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
yeah.
There's no reason
This
why.
way you can, if they, tell them, give us their
But do you
best
have any
guess. It's their article.
suggestions,
They think 10 is good? 10 is good.
I would like to see, I'm sorry,
You go ahead, Paul.
I would like to see some sort of limit.
I agree.
I'm amenable to anything from 7 to 10.
Good.
Whatever
good.
other boards and so would think. I think less than 7 is too little. And I think 10 is a quite reasonable max.
Yeah, we're spitballing, and it's worth consulting with people who actually do the
Their
hiring of
article.
these people and see,
Right.
you know, what,
Before I
maybe they have any
move to-
insight into that.
I would vote to recommend this, I'd like to see something of
Absolutely.
that sort put in.
But we could do it Monday.
Just, I would, just from what I do professionally in contracts, government and light commercial, I mean, as what I would do, I'd love a 20-year contract, but reality, I think you get the most service and the attention from the vendor, the shorter the contract is. You're gonna have, tweaks and so forth. So I think 7 years is really, it's more than doubling what is there now, and I think,
Anything
it's.
beyond that.
Right, I think 7 years is, you think about 7 years, 7 years is a long time for a contract, because technology changes, commodity prices changes, so there's a lot of variables. I think 7 years is a
I think
real,
the impression I got from the school
Good number.
superintendent was, he was worried about the busing contract, and he thought if he could go for 5 years, it would be helpful.
yeah.
Okay.
I
In
felt
this
the same.
negotiation, that's the feeling I got from him, but
Right, that
let's
he-
see what they
if we
say.
set
He
it,
needed that
if we
wiggle
set
room.
it at 7 here tonight, and somebody in conversation with Mike says, boy, 10 would really be helpful to us,
We can
Then
reopen
we
it.
can reconsider, well, then we can fix that Monday,
Why
right?
don't we, yeah, Monday, why don't we set the
let's-
number Monday after they talk to them? They'll come back and say, gee, I'd love to have 7, and then we could vote on it.
We're already waiting to talk about the operating budget supplements that
Right.
night, after a conversation with him as well, so.
Yeah.
Should we vote this at 7 and then only address it if needed on Monday?
It's up to the committee.
It can kind of go either way.
It'll be fine.
See if I can word this properly. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to make an amendment to Article 9 to set a limit of 7 years to the length of contract allowed.
Second.
Motion and a second to amend
Article 9,
Article
special
9,
town meeting.
special town meeting to cap it
Great.
at 7 years.
Greater than 3, not more than 7.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment? Looks unanimous. Thank you.
I'll talk to the superintendent. I don't think he'll have any issue with that, but I'll talk to him and let you know.
Whole article now as we amended it.
Yeah, I will move the article as amended. This way it'll be off the books.
Second. We can reconsider it
Yeah,
if we need to.
but we move it out, move it as amended.
Tom, did you move it?
Yeah,
Did you
he
just
just
make
seconded
another?
it. So,
Yes.
I moved it, he seconded it.
He passed.
This is now the main motion.
I got the
Recommend the
one
article.
Aaron made.
Yeah,
This
we,
is to recommend the article as amended.
now we're recommending the article as amended.
Thank you.
Motion and a second to recommend the article
As amended,
as amended
yes.
to the special town meeting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
The next article is Article 10 on the special. This is for the Route 123 improvements that are going to happen from Pine Street to the highway. Previously, the town, we took a stab at $70,000 we put aside for this project for the payment for easements and takings along the way. And the appraisals were done and came in at $115,000. Some of those may be donated, but we don't know what's going to be donated. So I'm recommending $45,000 from free cash to at least, we'll have the $115,000 if we need it. And this project, the selectmen will have to vote the end of May on the takings, and the checks all have to be cut in June. And so we need to have the money in the special, not in the annual. And the project goes out to bid in July, and this will be awarded in October. So,
Total amount available after the vote is
115.
That project is still a year away.
And for those of you that live on the west side of town, we recently signed a contract for engineering for the traffic signals at North Worcester and South Worcester, and,
Maybe done in my lifetime?
well, as long as you live to 2020, it's scheduled to be on the tip in 2023, so you
Oh,
gotta,
jeez.
2024.
I guess we're not gonna cross it in any traffic
My
lights.
son starts driving,
Yeah,
11.
please let it be done before my daughter starts driving.
okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Tom?
I make a motion that we recommend Article 10 of the special by taking $45,000 in free cash, by appropriating $45,000 in free cash to pay for it.
Mike, what is the balance in free cash at this?
Well, we started at $1,365,609, and we're still looking at the budget supplements, but it was at 254, but I know the schools are going way back on that, so on the 200 they were looking for, so that'll be lower. But using the 254, and then the 40,000 for the demo of the Campbell House, and 600,000 for the budget, and the 25,000 for tree services. It'll be at, and then this 15,000, it would be at, 45,000, I'm sorry, would be around $376,609, and that's always our goal, is to have 300,000 remaining in free cash at least going into the
New year. Thank you. Okay, so a motion and a second to recommend Article 10 of the special town meeting, 45,000 from free cash. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you. And on the annual, let's see, get to my cheat sheet. So, on Monday, we'll do Article 3. And then next article will be Article 5. Article 5 is to appropriate $5,000 for our environmental engineers, CEC Associates, who are monitoring the work on the Elm Street site that's being done by EPA and DEP, and helping us with any grants that we have to file. We just recently filed a grant for $350,000 for assessment work out there. And on the site, the chimney's down now. I don't know if you've been out there recently. The chimney had to come down so they could remove any oil tanks that are in the ground. And so the Coast Guard they're actually getting money from the Coast Guard for the oil removal. And the state had to take asbestos off of a small building over there by the chimney that has to be removed. So things are moving forward. And the recommendation would be $5,000 from free cash.
Will that be all that we have to spend on that property, as far as for cleaning it up?
We don't know that yet. You know, as they finish up all their assessing, then we'll know.
And I know there was a presentation a month ago or so at the high school. Is there going to be one here again? Us?
Yes, yep,
After probably the 15th?
after the 15th. They're going to have a presentation. I know they're doing one on cable. I believe I'll get you the dates, but I believe it's May 21st. And I know they want to have an open house. They were trying to get the library early in May, but it wasn't available. So they're going to look at one of the schools, like we did at the Yale School for the Town Center Common, where they can set up and just have people come in and walk around and talk to them and answer questions. But this is for the environmental engineers, whether we were building on that property or not, we want to have someone keep an eye on it, so, like we did with SPAC.
Yep.
Mike, open house for what?
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about the Town Hall and Senior Center?
Yeah.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, on Elm Street.
And I know we just had a meeting recently, and we're working with them. The building inspector and the fire department is concerned with the buildings on Cross Street. The roofs now it's holes in the roofs, and we're constantly going out there boarding those up. So we're trying to get that moved up, the asbestos abatement on those, so we can take those buildings down soon. We'll see what happens with that.
Okay.
That's the big fear, is that we want to get that building out of there as soon as possible. I know the fire chief could talk to you about that. If that ever caught fire, I know in Brockton there was a nightmare. A building caught fire, and just all the water that was used on the fire washed everything down, and you just don't want asbestos and any other contaminants that might be there. So, and once that roof caves in, the building is junk, cost a lot more to get rid of it. Right now, people will want those wooden beams that are inside that building, so hopefully, we're trying to get everyone to move quick on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Tom?
I move we recommend Article number 5 of the annual town meeting in the amount of $5,000 from free cash.
So there's 2 areas of savings.
Nice.
I'll second.
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend Article 5 of the annual town meeting for $5,000 from free cash. Any further discussion? Aaron?
Just to clarify, this is just to expedite demolition of the existing building?
Now, this is for our environmental engineers to oversee what is being done down there, to make sure things are being done properly, and that the EPA and DEP keeps moving on cleaning that up for us. And any grant applications that we have to make, they'll work with us on that.
I just have one follow-up question. Is there a time deadline with the EPA regarding that project as far as?
We wish. We, at the meeting the other night, other day, we told them our goal is to, we want to have everything out of there by the end of 2020.
And then you would demo it?
No, we want to have the building gone by
Gone.
2020.
Okay.
December 2020. We'd want everything out of there, building gone, everything.
Leveled.
Yep.
We set aside $1 million to do a study. This wouldn't fall. Where does that stand?
That, that is there's still 1.3 in that account. And that would be used for, it's the way it was
Wouldn't
set,
fall under the scope of what that money was set
Any-
aside for?
architectural design, engineering, or we could take it out of that too.
It seems like that's what we set that aside for, like, this, or that this would be part of what we set that aside for. Instead of free cash, perhaps that's the right place to use, pull that money from.
I have no problem with that.
It's a great idea.
I have no problem with it.
Okay. So it'll be taken out of the existing funds that were set aside under the previous
I don't know
article.
how you-
Okay.
I just say existing funds
You gotta make that motion.
Instead of free cash.
instead of free cash.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we,
Well, we had a motion and a second, so we need to,
I'll remove my motion. It's the second time tonight.
Poor Pat, I'm so sorry.
Aaron?
Breaking me in good.
FinCom tennis.
Go, Aaron.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an amendment to Article 5 of the spring annual town meeting. I do not have it written out.
Well, it's technically not an amendment. You'd make a motion to approve with the 5,000 coming out of funds that were already set
instead of free
aside.
cash.
Right.
Instead of free
Not
cash.
amending
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the article taking the $5,000 from existing funds and not free cash.
Second.
And they are existing funds that were
Earmarked
specifically
for that
designed for
type.
this project, so.
Yep.
So you don't have to, yeah.
We'll write
Second.
the motion.
Motion and a second to approve Article 5, 5,000 from funds that already exist for this project. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
The next article is Article 9, Capital Improvements Appropriation. As usual, we usually wait until the fall to put money into the capital, so I recommend no action on that.
We won't be amending that, right, so I'll move it. Driving Pat crazy.
You're moving it?
I'll move Article 9, no action.
I'll second.
That's an easy one.
You can do that.
Can't mess that up.
Motion and a second for Article 9, capital improvements appropriation for the annual town meeting, no action. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Still waiting on Article 12 and 13 from the Water and Sewer Department for a figure. Article 14 is the master plan update. We haven't had, our master plan was last done in the 80s and is outdated and really should be updated. And Paul DiGiuseppe's been doing a great job in looking at possible costs. And it's anticipated that the cost will be $100,000 to update the plan. But we're able to get $30,000 from our community compact grant that will help us, and $40,000 from SERPED, $20,000 this year and $20,000 next year. So that adds up to $70,000 of the $100,000. So my recommendation is $30,000 raise and appropriate. And the master plan is something that not only beneficial for us, but when we apply for grants, a lot of times they're, almost all of the time, they're looking for our master plan, and we have to tell them, well, it was done in 1989 and needs to be updated.
I know you're.
I'm just going to make a motion and
And
ask
I'm
if there's
thinking
any
it too.
questions before I try to move it. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we recommend Article number 14 for $30,000 to be raised and appropriate. Raise and RNA.
Motion and a second for Article 14, master plan update in the annual town meeting, $30,000 to be raised and appropriated. Any further discussion?
I'm so sorry. Real quick, I'm sorry, Mike, I thought you said that it would cost about $1,000 and that we had 30,000 that we might be able to get back.
It'll cost $100,000,
And we
100,000, that's, sorry,
70 back.
and we
We're
get
gonna 70
70 back.
70 back, not 30 back.
30 from a compact, community compact grant, and then 40,000 from SERPED, 20,000 this year and
That
20,000.
was what I meant. the
Trying to give me a
30, but
complex.
okay.
Try
Sorry.
Aaron, you're trying to give me a complex?
No.
Try to keep up.
Okay. Gotta go to the vote.
Without any further questions, before Tom has to restate this
We're
again.
having too much fun.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
I'd just like to stretch the meetings out.
You know, you have a lot of zoning bylaw amendments, and the problem we have there is that they were supposed to have their hearing on April 30th, and the paper didn't put it in, they didn't advertise it. So they are not going to be having their hearing until May 14th.
Great.
Oh, God.
So their recommendation you're not going to have to the day of.
Day of the meeting.
But I would like to see about, have them come in here before to talk about, and then you could wait for their recommendation. But I'll try and set up a night where they can come in and at least talk about these prior to.
Yep.
There's 5 of them, isn't that? Oh, that's a bylaw, that's not a zoning bylaw, that's
Um,
4, yeah.
Article 20 is personal bylaw amendment. And what we're looking to do there is 2 things. One is we want to hire an assistant water and sewer superintendent, and the salary that is in the bylaw right now. It's just been there, and it's a position that has never been filled, so they've never raised the salary in there. So we want to change the salary. I'm trying to find the article right now. So right now, the Assistant Water and Sewer Department, it's 50,000 to, 53,000 to 70,000. And you are not going to get anyone to do that job for that price. So we're looking to raise the salary. And I can't find the article.
Want this?
So we were looking to increase that salary from 73,000 to, the range would be 73 to 80,000. So this is a salaried position, and people working there now, there's people that would make close to that with their regular salary and their overtime. So being an assistant, we want someone that's qualified to run a water treatment plant. So we're looking to increase that salary. The second part of this is in all the contracts right now, people that are eligible, they get, after 1 year, you get a week's vacation. And the way that it is in the contract right now is you'd be eligible to use that 1 week after 6 months, so people don't have to wait a whole year without any time off. And where that's in all the contracts, we're looking to put that into the wage and salary plan also.
So just, to just take one step back.
Sure.
The Assistant Water Superintendent, that salary parameters are done through a study through similar towns?
Correct, looking to see.
Okay, so,
And we just went out for, the water and sewer superintendent recently, so
Yep.
we
Yep.
analyzed that at the time.
so that puts it on the map. And then you're saying about the week's vacation, you're saying it's going to go to salary as well?
No, that, in the wage and salary plan that we have,
Yeah,
right now, you get a week's vacation after a year of service. And that's what it was in all the union contracts too, but it was changed so that it's still, you earn a week's vacation in your first year, but you can use that week after 6 months of service. So, and then the intent is then the next year, after 2 years, you get the whatever.
all right, okay. That's,
You don't get that week back. I mean, it's still only the 1 week, but you get to use it.
yeah, that's fair.
The only question I have is that we're going from a much broader range, salary-wise, to a much narrower range. Is that kind of something that we're doing across the board as we're updating salaries? We're making the ranges narrower, or is there some specific reason that we went from like a $20,000 raise or range to a $7,000 range?
I don't know why the range was set up the way it was before.
Okay.
Usually when we set up the ranges, it's enough to cover any possible increases over the next 3 years. So the idea was that someone will come in a little closer to that lower range, and then if they get 2 or 3% increases over the next 3 years, that would be safe.
That makes
I
sense.
think what the reason over the years, going back a good many years, was that it do exactly what you're saying. But we never bothered to deal with the minimum.
Minimum,
The minimum. The minimum stayed the same. Well, we needed to increase it
right.
because somebody was bumping up on the top. We would just
that
go
makes sense.
back.
Okay.
And leave it, and
Open up
not
the
do
top
that. And
and
then a
leave the
few
bottom the
years
same.
back, we did do an adjustment where we tried to move the bottom up
Right.
too,
Right.
as we move the others.
Right.
So
I
at some
don't know
point in
quite-
time, this might have been $53,000 to $60,000.
That's right.
Yes.
And then
Exactly right.
we went from 53 to 60
Exactly
to
right.
53 to 65 and on.
Exactly.
You're
Okay.
exactly right.
Excellent.
The bottom
Thank you for
stayed solid.
clarifying.
Bottom
Everything
stayed
moved.
solid and we moved the top as needs be.
Okay.
Then there was an attempt to rectify this because the range had gotten so big.
zoned by the town
Right.
for that use. Am I allowed, I mean, I'm observing, I'm not coming to the board.
Okay.
I'm going around town observing all the.
What did we say it was going to go 73 to 80, right?
Yes.
Nope, I was gonna.
280.
Recommend Article 20 as follows, moving the range for the assistant. It's going to be the assistant water superintendent, right? Oh,
We can just move it as written, right?
well, then why don't I just move it as amended?
Right.
Move the article as written, sorry. I reckon we move Article 20 as written. I don't have mine either. That's why I couldn't find it.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve Article 20 of the annual town meeting, town bylaws as written. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous.
And I'll email you tomorrow, confirm that I've got the water and sewer and planning for next Monday.
Okay,
I'll let you know.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, did you get my emails today?
On scheduling a meeting?
Yeah.
I didn't get your email.
Should I, so, is there a meeting tomorrow?
No, May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay. Okay,
So I'll let everyone know and see if we can get,
okay, thank you. Would anybody or, does anybody have anything else to discuss?
I do.
Okay?
Pick me.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Mike, I may have a question for you as we go through this.
Almost got out.
I know.
you were so close.
If those binders weren't so heavy, you would have made it.
I was hoping that we could have a conversation to address the fact that we are gonna have a $545,000 shortfall in level services of the general education budget. And that in spite of giving a good portion, solid portion of our available growth to the school department, that was gobbled up by special education mandates and has left the general education budget that services 90% of our kids short and is going to lead to some cuts.
Again.
Again, well, yeah, at the schools. And we know that this, we know that these sped mandates are a kind of intractable problem for the school because they can't solve it themselves by backing down on what they spend to save for years where the sped mandates go up, right? Because then we say, well, you didn't use what we gave you, and, you know, just the budget would go down. So they spend to the limit, and then the sped mandates go up, which leaves them less money for general education. And they end up in this seesaw, this endless seesaw of hiring and firing and hiring and firing as the sped mandates go up and down. And nobody is talking about trying to help them find a solution for that. How to steady the ship in the general education budget so that we can.
Isn't that why we have a school committee?
So again, we do, and they're discussing it, they're trying to figure it out, but they can't do it on their own, they can only spend what they're given, right? So And if they don't spend, the only way that they could solve it, Tom,
Yep.
is they could say, oh, let's back off $500,000 on our general education budget and start to create our own reserve fund.
But how
For sped.
do you think we can solve the problem?
I think,
We have $1 right now, okay?
yep,
And that's all we have. And we spent it. Unless we can go in the back room and find the Amex card from Amy, or get TD America, to come up with their cash, donation, how do you think we can get the money they need with what we have to work with? That's why Proposition 2.5 was developed, okay?
Right.
To cap spending,
right.
all right?
So I get that we can't spend.
We can talk about it.
More
and we
than
have
we're
talked
allowed to.
about it. I mean, we talk about it in our primary language, and people understand in our primary language, it's basic mathematics. You can't spend 2 if you only have 1.
Right.
And I understand the school's problem. It's volatile. Whenever he told me some students are covered 24/7, 365 days a year, I can't even fathom that.
Right.
Okay? I can understand where he's coming from. But I don't know how we solve it unless the town wants to stand up and do something different. We can't do it, but the town has to do it. We talked about it, and as I said, if you look back, you can go back 15 years and look at our town reports. The front page said almost specifically in every year, the same thing you just said. How do we steady the ship? How do we get more funds? We can't. We're not a nonprofit organization, okay? We're a service organization, and we can't raise money by any way but increasing taxes.
I think there's a way we can steady the ship. It's just a question of assessing what the current situation is and reacting to it.
Well, how do you react to it? Where do
You
you get
cover the
money?
general education budget.
Where do you get the money for it? It's the same money. You can call it
We
general
have
education.
departments in town that are growing and that we're adding to.
But
We have
not-
departments that may be able to come back and get money in the fall, whereas that doesn't really help the schools. And I think if we just actually had a conversation about trying to work out that problem and find a way to make it happen, we might not be able to make it all happen, but we should certainly be able to make some significant progress with it. And then, we know that it's not always up with these, with the sped mandates. Sometimes a kid moves out of town, or 2 kids move out of town, and it falls. And that may be a year where we say, hey, now the money you are not spending on your sped mandates is covering your general education growth.
I hear where you're coming from. I just don't see the path to get it solved. And if you're looking at the pittance that we spend with improving some of the town departments, okay, there's only 3 departments in town that have any real money. Police, fire, highway.
Right.
Do the math. You're in a position where you either save your brother or your sister. That's where we are right now.
So one of the issues that we run into is with police and fire is we know they're not fully funded right now. They're going to have to come back and ask for money in the fall, right? We heard Chief Schleicher explaining to us that EpiPens are $600 and this is going to be a problem. And I hear him loud and clear. Hear him loud and clear. Mike, part of the reason I asked you to stick around is I thought you might be the one to be able to take your best stab at helping me try to make sense of, over the years, how much money we have been able to give to those departments in the fall, and how much money we've had left over once fall meeting has ended. And if we can extrapolate from that some sort of sense of how much money we might have, we might be able to comfortably, reasonably expect to be able to give to, and I say that, and I mean comfortably and reasonably, because if you're talking about police and fire, you're talking about public safety, and that's to be taken very seriously. How much money can we comfortably and reasonably expect to be able to provide with the police and fire department in the fall? And I know cherry sheets aren't in, and or you know, you don't have all the information you need, rather. to give me a number, but we can look at a 5-year history and get a sense.
We haven't. We know we're going to give them in the fall, what their cut was in overtime. That's the only thing we're going to give them.
Might we have more available to give them?
Well, we can use all our free cash. We can make the self-fulfilling prophecy come true.
What about, but we know we don't like using free cash, like, so, but.
I mean, I've been through the free cash thing with the school
Right.
committee, and they got upset with me because their free cash is their free cash, and our free cash is ours.
Right.
And theirs. But the point is, free cash isn't free, and it isn't cash.
Right.
Okay?
Right, so I'm not talking about using
So we
free
got
cash or
well,
capital or stabilization or
got
any of that stuff that we shouldn't be touching.
There's
right?
$300,000 going to be left in free cash. That's the only funds we have left.
So, without you actually saying it, are you trying to time the budget?
Yes, in a way, I am. I'm wondering. Can we make an estimation that we will be able to cover more than just the cut over time? That's more than just the current cut over time for police and fire in the fall. So that police and fire now might be able to take a little hit, not a cut. The intent is to restore this in the fall. But in the fall, it's too late for the schools. The schools need it now because pink slips get issued in June. They need to know what they're doing by May. So I'm wondering, yes, if we can play a little timing trick and be comfortable about not endangering our public safety,
Well, we've already given them.
because we know.
We've already taken out of their budget. What
But I think what Aaron is trying to say is from basically July 1 to October 30th, let's just use that as a number. What, fire, police, highway, whatever.
That's the number I used.
You kind of fund them almost that amount versus the full year. Not going that drastic, but I think that's the theme. So that you take that excess, hit it to the school for June 1st, and then hope, which is the problem, that in October you have that money to give it back.
But you already took the money out. The money's gone. It isn't in the budget. It's like writing a check. I wrote it to you, but you didn't cash it, but it's gone.
No.
Okay?
I
The
think what's
overtime
being-
budget is gone. It's been
I
reduced.
think it's beyond that.
What is it beyond? There is nothing else in his budget, in the fire and police department budget.
But I think
We just cut the
We could
overtime
cut
out.
it and give it back to them in the fall, is what he's saying.
That's-
And
that-
then they would
Right.
have that.
Wait a minute.
We could give that, this is what
Go
he's
ahead.
saying. Don't.
So,
I know what he's
it's
saying.
not,
You
it-
cut
it-
you
Cut
cut
it again.
it's
You
at the,
cut both of them and give them the money back in the fall because the schools can't
Well,
wait till the fall.
right,
Right.
the schools will have what they need in May, and therefore they get nothing come October, and all the stuff we play with in October goes back to the departments that you've.
I tell you, I'm personally not comfortable.
I'm not saying I'm comfortable, I'm just
I'm
saying,
not comfortable with that approach.
that's what the
Okay.
theory is.
All right?
I don't know whether to be comfortable with that approach because I don't know what the numbers are, and that's why.
Well, I'm
asking.
not comfortable with dialing 911, having nobody show up. All right?
Exactly.
Okay?
Hey, right.
So
But
that's my
Tom,
problem, and I'm also not comfortable of saying, let's take Peter and give it to Paul, all right? And then maybe, just maybe, we'll give it to Paul back, we'll give it back to Peter in the fall, because we've really cut him badly,
Right.
okay?
Chief,
And I'm not safe with that.
Chairman?
I'm not uncomfortable, I'm very uncomfortable.
but in fairness, Paul, part of my, Tom,
It's okay.
sorry.
We're both saints.
In fairness, in the prefacing of my question, I did make it clear that I'm not that this would need to be a very reasonable expectation, right? And I just wanted to know what that number was. I'm not trying to play with the possibility that we may or may not be able to provide adequate public safety. That's not.
My position is.
That's not an option to me.
And if I'm adamant, it's me. My position is, there's no way that I could even think about cutting police or fire any more than we have cut them, okay?
Right.
There's just no way in the world.
My only point is that police and fire can be restored in the fall.
But I'm not worried about them being restored. They have problems too. You know, not the school doesn't
Right.
just have special needs, okay? We could have a major disaster in this town and not have the money to pay the police because we decided to give it to a couple of teachers. The bottom line is, we have to staff them at the level they are now, and that's below what they should be getting even after we cut the overtime out.
But they can be staffed at the level they are now.
Only if we
up
have the
until
money.
town
And I'm
meeting.
not willing to do the crapshoot. I'm not a casino player. I'm not gonna play the roulette saying we don't have the money. So, sorry, police and fire.
I'm asking how much of a
Gentlemen.
crapshoot is it?
Hold off for a second.
I guess I just wanted to make two quick points. I totally understand what Mr. Smith is saying, and I get it, and we've done this over the last couple of years. But there is absolutely no guarantee that we're going to get that money in the fall. That is my fear. And I'm not going to do anything July 1st to jeopardize public safety, but in the same token, I can't spend money I don't have. I just can't do it. As far as the school resource officer is concerned, which is, kind of what we're talking about, I mentioned Monday night, it's going to take me 9 months to get somebody trained. So we won't see a second school resource officer next year if we do this in October. We won't see him. There's no way I can get that person trained and backfilled to have somebody. So now we're talking about another year. And this is one of the problems that I think we have in the police department. It's like, it's always another year. There's always, I've been asking for this position for 3 years. I have a school resource officer who's full-time dealing with 5 schools. It's coming to me, telling me constantly, there's a lot of work here. I'm concerned. I need help. He's telling me that constantly. So I don't have school choice to go to. I don't have an ambulance fund to go to. I don't have any other sources of income. And that's just the concerns that I wanted.
Yeah, and I have no desire to lay a finger on that school resource officer. I think that's a great idea, and I've been 100% for it since the moment it was mentioned the first time in this room, and I've been pushing for it. I think what I'm trying to get at is hopefully we would be able to, again, I think Rick put it pretty well, just try to work the timing a little bit so that you get your school resource officer, you get fully funded in the fall, you're made whole eventually when that can work for you, but it's too late for the schools. The schools can come back and ask for some supplies in the fall, but as far as them deciding whether or not they need to, whether or not they need to fire people, they're making that decision in 3 weeks, and then issuing pink slips. They're having those meetings. Those meetings are scheduled for them, and so for them it's a little bit now or never. And the hope was that we might be able to find police, fire, anyone else in town who might be able to be restored in the fall. I mean, maybe police and fire are not, if that's too risky, maybe there are other departments that we can try to play that game with a little bit that might be not putting public safety at risk, but projects, improvements, other things that we'd like to do, but maybe this isn't the year we can pull it off. Maybe a year when sped mandates go down is the year we can take that money, throw it into capital, and make it work.
Just a few points. You talk about layoffs. I know this year unemployment, the only layoffs I dealt with were cafeteria workers. I know we always hear about layoffs, but
Teachers and administrators.
and as far as finding money, we can't tell the schools how to spend their money, but we do know that they have $600,000 in school choice funds that's currently planned to be spent on Promethean smart boards. So maybe what you should be doing is saying to the superintendent of schools, I think making sure you have more teachers is more important. So I think you should use that money right now to make sure you have those teachers, and maybe it can get replaced in the fall. I don't think we should be asking police and fire to cut their budgets some more so that the schools can use it on
Again, I want to
teachers.
be abundantly clear about this. This is not about taking from police and fire. This is a question about, can we borrow from them with a reasonable
Well,
expectation
why can't we-
to be able to make them whole?
But why can't we borrow from the school choice? They have their own $600,000 school choice fund that now is set aside and planned to buy capital items. They also, if you look at their budget, they have a lot of money for supplies. They'll hold off on those supplies. There's some that they don't need to the spring. So if they can make that decision. And the schools have come back, unfortunately, last fall, $366,830. Right now, they're looking for $150,000. So in addition to what was appropriated last May for this year's budget, you're already added $366,830 in the fall, and another $150,000 is being looked for. So I can't tell the schools how to spend their money. I can't tell them how to staff their schools. All I can say is, this is what we have, and it shouldn't be, we're already taking a chance, as the chief said, with what we're cutting from the other departments, with the hope we feel we will be able to replace that like we did last year and the year before that and the year before that. And that allows the schools to have money to do whatever they have to do as far as staffing.
I think you're hitting on it a little bit, Mike, which is, I think part of the reason I asked the question is it has become kind of a matter of course that the police and the fire take a little bit of a risk and hope to be made whole in the fall, but it always happens.
But if I may, Mr. Smith, one of the issues that I have with that is that I do lessen my staffing in anticipation, because I have to run the year that I know I'm gonna have enough staffing for 12 months of the year.
Right.
So I can't still spend at the full level when you've only given me this much. So I actually do ramp back my staffing levels for the summer, which is I got a lot of people on vacation, and I should actually be ramping up my staffing, but I have to do that because of the arbitrary cuts that are given to me in anticipation of hopefully getting it back in October. So again, Mr. Yunus just gave you the perfect out for that, is have them spend some of their $600,000 in free, no, not free cash, what do you call it, Mike? School choice money, in anticipation of stuff going further down. Let them take the gamble. I don't think you should be fighting with public safety. I'm totally opposed to anything more than they're doing. I'm actually opposed to the cut I've already gotten, because I don't have a level service budget, and I didn't get 4.8%, Mike? No, 3.8.
3.9.
3.8?
Nine.
I got 2
3.9.
point something, you know? So again, it really isn't.
But
And
again-
I got mandates, I got OSHA now that I'm dealing with and stuff like that there, so we're going backwards. We're not going forward either. But again, when we're here, Mike gives me, as a professional, says, this is what I got to work with, chief, work with it. And that's what I've been doing.
And the bottom line is, I talked to the superintendent. The superintendent is satisfied that, it's not obviously what he wanted, but he can work with it. And so he'll make the adjustments that he has to make to assure that.
I really think we're all missing the point here. I preface this with, I am not trying to put them at any risk, and that their job is to be taken very seriously, and their funding needs to be whole, needs to be able to be made whole. The question was just, how sure are we that we would be able to make them whole? Because it seems like we're always able to do that. And since we've been able to do that year after year, and that's become kind of matter of course, is there any extra padding there with which we might still feel very comfortable and be able to assure them 99% we're going to be able to do this? We have every reasonable expectation that we would be able to do this. If that's not the case, I wouldn't ask for a dime.
But I think what the chief just said was, if you give me, if you take my budget to $5, that's what I base it on, not the 10 that you're gonna give me back in November. So I understand that issue, that he has to plan for this, because this is what's on paper, not this, which is what we hope to give them. So you got that issue.
This annual, money that we're able to give them in the fall very regularly. If that's a tenuous proposition year to year, then this is, then that's the answer to my question, and I would not request $1 from them.
I think ultimately, what we all recognize but ignore in this discussion right now is that we're using $600,000 of free cash, which, could be there, may not be there. But we're basing our balanced budget on the fact that we're gonna have $600,000 of free cash. And so if we're gonna be like, is it Plainville or whoever, that, whoops, that's not there this year.
Okay.
Then
So,
what?
thank you.
There is a difference in that we're using $600 in this budget. 600 is money we already have. It's not an we're not.
It's last year's
we're
free
not
That
using it
isn't.
in anticipation,
That
which
isn't.
is the worst thing you could possibly do.
That isn't.
But, I think the point that was made up here is, I'm in full agreement with that. No responsible department head can say, this is what was given me for my annual budget. But I'm going to and I've got to spread that out to get through 12 months. They're not going to say, well, I hope I'm going to get enough for the last 3 months later on, so I'll spend as if I only have to budget for 7 months or 8 months or 9 months.
Yep.
You can't do that. You could be brought up for fiscal whatchamacallits and everything else.
Because the promise of further funds just can't.
It's not a promise, it's a maybe.
Yes, thank you.
If you go back and look at the amount of free cash that we've gotten over the last 20 years, there's 1 year in there,
It was negative free cash.
negative free cash.
Okay.
We had to put money
Then,
in
good,
escrow.
thank you. This is answering my question, right? It was how tenuous of a proposition is this? You're telling me very, and then, okay, I'm backing off.
Of that. Now, absolutely true that since the recession got over, and I've heard other members of the committee also say, God, we get over $1 million or $2 million or something in free cash every year. Why can't we sort of use that planning ahead? We use it, but I think we, so far at least, are not using money in anticipation of our having it.
Exactly.
And free cash we do use for the next year's budget, which we shouldn't be doing. We should be using it just for capital expenditures because you never know what you're going to get.
Gotcha.
But there is the other out. This is the out that nobody wants to say, and I know why. But it is the out that the framers of 2.5 put in. And that is, it's that awful word, general override. That is what we need. That is what would allow us to do the kinds of things we should be doing, kinds of things you thought in terms of education that we should be doing in terms of our library, and we could name, and we should be doing in
And
terms
our
of
police and fire departments.
And everything else. We have cut. We don't have municipal trash collection. Other places do. We have cut back on all sorts of things, year in, year out. Our growth has not, more often than not even kept up with the rate of inflation.
Just went up.
The town finally did an override, which was a debt exclusion override for the school. But that's the first one we did. There is now, as you know, we may be going up to decide whether we want to do another one this year for things that we badly need. But that is what is there to solve this. I don't think, I know that corporations do the kind of thing that you're talking about, and I know it's done a lot. We'll give them enough to spend this and put this because we need it there now, and by the time they run out of money, we'll have enough so we can give it back.
Not corporations that are still in business.
Huh?
Yeah.
It's not a,
Well,
it's not a public
Yeah,
corporation.
No.
That's called
No, but it's done in many businesses, and, but,
I get,
sorry, I just think we're on the wrong track all the way on. How do we deal with this? I don't know how we deal with it for this year. I don't see how we can, unless somebody wants to put together, and we have sometime in June or July, a general override, and the vote, and it passes, and
Thank you for the good answers from everybody. Thank you, Chiefs.
Budget,
And thank you, Mike.
$77,000. $1,077,000 is the debt exclusion. Okay, that's right out of our budget. That's an expense, okay?
Yeah.
There's
I
your
got that.
500,000 plus,
Yeah, things cost money, Tom.
Okay.
I get it.
you know? Amy?
So it seems to me that in being responsible and trying to make sure that everyone is getting what they need as much as we possibly can by putting $600,000 in free cash aside for next year's budget every year, and by using money in the ambulance fund every year, and by doing all of these things, we're kind of Band-Aiding everything together. So from that 2020 perspective where you're moving from 20 feet away at 20 miles an hour, everything looks great. But really, it's just kind of like a shellac over the fact that we have some really fundamental problems. And frankly, I would be happier to vote for a budget that let everyone in town know that we have some really fundamental problems, so maybe they would be more incentivized to fix them. Because what we're doing is going to come back to bite us in the backside at some point, and I know that it is.
There's no doubt in
So,
my mind.
the premise of my question ended up sort of addressing police and fire because they're here, and thank you again, Chiefs.
Here anymore.
And,
You can check his address on the way home.
Dial
is
911.
they're here. And I read everyone in the room, and Mr. Units included, loud and clear on the fact that the answer to the question is there is not a reasonable anticipation of enough funds available for everybody to be able to bank on it, and for that little timing trick to work, especially at the risk of our police and our fire or our public safety in general. That is understood.
But if the
Let me ask you
some of their
this.
expense items, put off some of
Might-
their expense items, they can do that in the fall, and then we sit down and have this discussion again when we see what the dollars are. Say, listen,
So excited.
I put
I
off
look forward to.
for now, and if for some reason we don't have any free cash,
Then we can
commit
push
Harry
off a
Carey.
couple of hires for highway.
Yeah.
Did you?
So what do we have in this budget, in this proposed budget, that is not police, that is not fire, that is not going to potentially endanger anybody, that we might be able to target?
Not enough.
because you're required to have a building inspector, you're required to have a board of health, you're required to have a conservation, you're required to have a tree warden, whether you want to pay one or not. You know.
Yep.
Weights and measures.
We hear all of those things you must do and you must fund.
I think,
Yep.
let me just say one thing. I think, just going back and listening to you, and your points are well taken, but I think hearing the schools, I think they've done a real good job identifying where the problems are. I think a third of the budget is special education, right?
Yeah.
And I think that third of the budget represents more than 10%. If I remember the Dr. Bayetta, yeah, it's much more. But
Yeah.
but to the point is they're identifying, and now I think what I'm hearing is they're putting a plan together, a strategic plan. So they're saying maybe they need a stabilization fund for special education, right? Some sort of fund that they can work from. Don't, but hear me out. And so they're creating something. Now, is that going to solve anything? No. I mean, it'll solve something, because some years they don't. What was it, 2 years ago? I think there was, I'm not going to use a number, but I think 2 years ago there was
A surprise.
a surplus. But, so they're going and they're managing it. So I think they're doing the right thing. And for us to interject and try to get in other departments' budgets, I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Didn't they talk about that, surplus account?
They were looking
like a
into
year
that.
or
I
two
think they're going to
ago?
present something like that, aren't they?
They looked into it a year or two ago, and
And then it died.
Tom said, who's going to fund it?
Well,
That's right.
Right,
Yeah.
and you're right, like, we don't have the
You
money
want a
to create that
stabilization
for you.
account, you gotta put money in from
Right.
somewhere.
And my point was, they can't create it for themselves, because then that just becomes money they didn't use in their budget that, you know, that gets lopped out and never
Well,
comes back.
They get,
So,
the town can carry money forward in some respects, because it goes back into free.
but we don't have it to help
But,
them steady.
Well, every year, some departments, we have something that goes, that gets, where the auditor comes in and it gets.
By the
part of our-
15th, yeah, we-
Of our free cash. Departments can't do that. The money goes back.
Yeah.
Into free cash.
Right.
What, if they had a stabilization account, and
Correct.
we made it possible, if they had any surplus in 1 year, they could put it in a stabilization account, which would basically allow them to hold it over.
So they'd be autonomous.
And they would have spent it, they would
Right.
have, but they spent their budget,
Right.
and it would have been, but they don't have that.
But they can
Right
have, they
now.
can get that through the,
We could, that could be set up. Now, the
How do
number
they
of
get
years
that?
that they have a surplus, because they always have, any good school or any good manager generally, if he's got some surplus in his budget, will buy equipment or do something
Right.
or other with
Right.
it. And
Absolutely.
not turn it back.
You know, Rick, you said they can get that.
no, but it's gonna be,
You want
Where?
next year,
How?
this year if you have the money.
but again, that's their choice. It's self-managing their own budget.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
The beauty about that is they got a number and they can do it anything they want with it, where we cannot. You can't take an expense item
Right.
and move it into salaries. The school can do whatever they want.
Right, but for them to create a $1 million,
They got-
you know,
they
their
got a
own $1 million
$30 million check
special
that
education
says,
stabilization
do it.
fund, they'd have to cut $1 million out of their general budget.
Well, just some years they might have a little surplus. I don't
To get
say that they
started,
do it,
you
or
know.
would be able to do it, I'm just saying.
Right.
That is, in those occasional years with a surplus, it would be a way to allow them for a short period of time,
Well-
maybe just to roll it forward rather than.
Right.
But what I remember hearing from Dr. Bayetta, there are some towns that are doing it now
Yeah.
and have had success.
Right.
Right, but it
But
takes,
there are probably also towns that will put money in it
right, they funded it.
when the budget comes around.
But
Yep.
Right.
And if we can't put money
OPEB.
in it for their regular budget, we probably can't give them money for a stabilization fund either.
So,
Because we'll just take it out of OPEB, it'll be fine.
so Mike, as I stated earlier, you know, it's very simple. You either decrease expenses or increase revenue. I know I threw this out a year ago, 2 years ago, got blasted for the suggestion. Why don't we have a dual tax rate in this town?
Industry and tax, yeah.
Can I answer?
We haven't established a dual tax rate mainly because our commercial tax base is so small. The goal is we're trying to get our commercial tax base up, and once that gets to 25% of the tax base in the town, it might be worth looking at. But right now, we're trying to attract businesses so we can build that up, and then once we get it up to that 25%,
But,
it would be something to look at.
but, you know, and I don't know what the numbers are,
Mhm.
and I don't even know what our tax rate is at this point. But say our tax rate is 15, and Taunton, Mansfield, Easton, Foxborough are at 20. So even if we have 15% of the total tax base is commercial, if you went from 15 to 16, you're still undercutting your competitors, and you're raising money. So I don't fully buy the argument not to do it.
Well, every year, there's a tax classification hearing, and anyone is welcome to come. You know, the selectmen do that with the assessors, and they decide whether there's a split or not.
Peter, you've had your hand up for like ever and a day.
Yes, I found this article the many articles that I posted on that, this is one from June 10th, 19, when it's back in the 8.80 million budget approved by town meeting where it's the highest amount the finance committee believes that town can incorporate a proposition 2.5 after the changes. School department elimination, say for school employees visited on the outcome of teacher negotiation until reduced by 11.4%. Police department, police elimination of 2 patrolmen later in the fiscal years. Possible cutbacks in investigation duties as total budget reduced by 9% of fire departments. Cutbacks in all firefighters force at Alvey, their total budget reduced by 7.4%. Wow. 1981.
Thank you.
I think the commercial tax base, Mike, is it less than 13% commercial tax base?
It's about 14.
14 now, so it's a drop in the bucket.
But we're not in the position to just say, it's a drop in the bucket, let's ignore it. We're in the position of, we don't have enough money. So to just blatantly say,
Well, that
drop
doesn't.
in the bucket is a
All right,
disservice.
let me go back. I'll say this. In order to track business, you have
You
to
missed
give
my
them a
point.
carrot, not a stick.
Can I just say something? It doesn't get you any more money.
You give them a carrot, and
It doesn't get you any more money. It just spreads out who pays for that. Your levy limit and your 2.5 cap is still the same. It just spreads out who pays for it. So if you have a split tax rate, it just means the businesses are paying more than the residents, but the pot is the same amount of money.
It's not growth.
That doesn't.
so, in essence, what you want to do is
So we need our new
Attract
businesses
business.
that are
Yeah,
new
but
growth.
again, if we're at.
New growth
New
is,
businesses,
So
meaning.
that's what we're
that's
trying to attract.
that's what
That's not gonna.
we've gotten much better at. When I first started here, our new growth was like 150, 200,000 a year, and I know when I'd be negotiating with Alvin, and they'd talk about Mansfield, I say, yeah, Mansfield has $1 million of new growth every year. We have like 150, 250,000, but it's been going up every. The assessor's been doing a great job, and, the planning has been doing a great job attracting businesses, and so we've been fortunate, and hopefully that continues.
And a lot
That-
of our businesses as well are small businesses. So we have a New England ice cream, and we have,
Right.
Business Park
you brand,
businesses and industries, but we have a lot of mom and pop,
right.
small businesses, and it would, the burden would be on them.
Well, I'm
25 years ago, Hopkinton was a sleepy town until EMC came in. And then a whole bunch of storage companies came in, piggybacked off them. And that town now is just, and there's no reason why Norton could be
Right.
similar to that. It's just branding themselves
build.
and doing the
It's just
right
happening
marketing.
slowly.
Huh?
If it's happening, it's happening very slowly.
Let's
So
get the
that's
folks
what
at
it
Elm
comes
Island
down to.
Introduce us to all their friends.
What? No, it's just having a.
Well, that has helped
Work
because
the-
it has made us a gold label
Oh, and Allion's a perfect, they're-
biological
they-
sciences
that's all
community,
cool.
so
That's
Excellent.
manufacturing.
it draws
Bio-
attention, and maybe some other
This
company
town is-
will come in, do the same.
That'd be fabulous.
Right.
What a novel idea.
Yeah.
What departments do we have that can charge fees?
Dogs,
School.
animal control, right?
Charge fees?
The building inspector's office.
Building.
Permit.
Dog licenses, permits, that kind of
Fire.
stuff? Maybe it should be $350 to get a dog permit. And that might sound ridiculous, but it's $350 for a kid to go run track for 2.5 months.
You want me to go
Or
home?
it'd be $350 to build a girl.
I'm gonna shave her out and say, no.
That'll keep the dog officer
But you
really
wouldn't, because
busy.
you love your dog and you need your dog. The way, these kids need their, like, is there room for some of these departments to try to, cover some of their nuts with, sharing the pain on ridiculous fees?
On the fire side, the fees are actually kept very difficult.
Good to know. But, what do we have control over? And again, I'm just trying, let's open up conversation and try and
Yeah.
figure this out.
Speed traps
I don't
at the
want to
town
just
line.
walk out of here and accept the fact
I
that we're
lived
going to leave our general education budget at $500,000 and then some
We-
in arrears.
We review the fees every year
Shy of.
to make sure that we're comparable to all the communities around us.
Not on the track team,
That's a different type of fee.
right? But, they're user fees for things that, we need to be paying for. So
Well, they're
spread the
using
users.
these for things we never had to pay for.
Right.
I didn't,
Just-
my parents didn't have to pay for, and I didn't have to pay for any of these, any of these fees when my 3 kids went through the Norton school
Yeah.
system.
Myself either. I asked my dad,
I totaled
"What
it
did you
up the other night, and I would have had to have paid, I had 3 kids go through the high school. I would have had to pay for 22 different sports seasons, putting them all together. Multiply that by 350.
Yeah.
Been a considerable increase in.
And Paul, you're not even on the bus yet.
Yep.
Oh, not even the bus. I mean,
Yeah.
this was just the sports.
We didn't pay for
God forbid you make National Honor Society. There's a $50 fee for that.
That's just
Thank you for
terrible.
all your hard work.
I
We're
find
very proud
that
of you.
so
That'll be
disturbing.
$50,
Parking.
please.
Yep.
to get in.
Parking at your own
Yep.
high school.
Right, so,
That's right.
the idea of the existence of an outrageous fee, I don't think needs to be mutually exclusive to the high school or to the school department, You need a building permit, $350, $500, what's it need to be?
That's a percentage of the estimated increase, or the estimated project cost.
Construction cost.
Over a certain amount of dollars, correct?
Yeah. Are we allowed to set that percentage?
No.
That's, again, that's a state law of what that can be?
Well, actually, you can set that. You can set it.
Yeah, as I said, we review our fees every year to make sure that we're comparable to the towns around us. And the only caution you have when it's a fee, if it's supposed to technically be the cost to provide the service. And if you're going well over that, then you'd have an issue with someone come after you and say, you're taxing, you can't do that.
So I can come after you about the track team fee? Again, if we need the money, why not spread the cost? Why not let departments cover departments who can cover their costs legally through fees to do so? And if you need a way to spread the message around town about the need for a Proposition 2.5 override, honestly, there'd be no better way than to have the highway department set up a toll on 123 and charge everybody
Well,
a buck every time they drove down it.
In answer to that,
Get sick of that real quick and head to the ballot box and put an end to it.
in answer to that, if you look at inspection, in the sheet I gave you tonight, look at inspection fees and look at the budget for the inspection department,
Right.
they're raising a lot more than the department costs, and 70% of that is going to sports or whatever at the school department, so.
Well, we obviously need more.
Dog fund is getting 10 grand in the budget.
Huh?
That's people, $10,000 is coming out of the animal control department for fees. That's got to come out of fees. That's part of the budget.
So again, it's either somehow raise more money, which is basically at this point growth, or cut expenses, or an override of some sort. And at this point, to cut expenses, you would be basically saying, town hall is open 2 days a week. Or, again, going back to 1992, I think when I moved here, and then read an article that, hey, Bill, you moved into a town without a police department on the weekend. So, I mean, it's,
So I wouldn't, I wouldn't want to go down that road with police and fire. Again, for the 9th time tonight, I take our public safety very seriously, thank you.
but.
And I do, but town hall can be open twice a week, fine. right? If that's what we need to do, but we
Yeah,
can't just sit back and let the
If that
police
happened,
department
then
not
you
be able to
wouldn't
cover it
raise the
tonight.
money
can't-
through the building department to pay for.
Those are revenue drivers.
Right.
Assessing department.
Okay.
Treasurer.
I mean,
Work
those
to
are-
raise
those are-
the money needs to get done, I think there's.
But the other thing we haven't mentioned is really where the pain's coming from. We're not getting the funding from the state.
But we
That
can't
was
use
it.
that as an excuse,
Well,
you
it's
know,
not
like,
an
oh, we don't have
excuse.
we don't have the commercial revenue, we don't get the help we should get from the state, but the problem still remains ours to solve. We can cast blame, but,
It's
you know,
not blame, it's called
It'll come back to what I said earlier.
negotiation.
Certain individuals, voted individuals, need to say their stance. What is, they're voted in to lead this town. So lead it.
oh, I agree.
What is your vision? And let's try to get it done. But to sit there silently and just, you know, well, we'll just see what happens. You know, we're not a very proactive.
I agree, and I think that I think the elected officials in this town, the Board of Selectmen in particular, should have their hands in these budget proposals as far as making sure that, you know, that they should be speaking up and putting together a budget, fighting for a budget that is important to them. Them punting the responsibility of how to disseminate the funds that we have to us, non-elected officials, doesn't leave the voter any recourse at the ballot box if they don't like the way it's done.
All I'm going to say
You
is.
can't vote us out.
I only remember one selectman here on a regular basis. One. And that person's now out of a selectman's job. So there are 4 others who I've never seen here. So, hello,
To meet with us, yeah.
to meet with us.
Right, one served for 10 years. But I think what I hear you saying is that you feel like, what I hear you saying is you feel like there needs to be more collaboration between the boards that are elected to make decisions in this town, to be, when they're in that position of leadership, to say how they feel we should address this problem, as well as this discussion here. But I do think it matters, we were talking about this earlier, I do think it matters, as Amy was saying, that this group of people talks about this problem and clearly labels it and says it on the front page of the town report. But I do think it's important that we had this conversation tonight and explored, and Aaron brought up, and all of us brought up, why things can't happen certain ways. But I do think that, you know, you've asked for some collaboration with other boards in town, and I do think that going forward, that will help us have a more cohesive plan. Hopefully, it hasn't happened yet, so we don't know, but I think that that is a place to start, because what we're doing now also is not working.
No.
Right.
And I think you're absolutely right. I think if there's two major groups that have to do it. School department, selected, the school committee, and the selectmen.
And if I can just add, just when you have that conversation, it just can't be a one-sided conversation that we need more money, we need more money, we need more money.
Right.
You also have to have the other side of the conversation. Are there things that could be done differently? So that, you know,
Compromise.
you're cutting some other costs that could go towards sports. I mean, you got to have both sides.
Well, but they won't balance out, right? We know that, you know? The additions and the cuts won't balance out
Right.
because
They're
that
gonna
just
end up
puts us
being
where we
apples and
are.
oranges.
We need more money, period.
You can always adopt the southern formula, send the police department out to ticket any non-Massachusetts car that
Isn't that what we're saying,
goes
like
2
after-
miles,
Can't-
2 miles over the speed limit.
Can't we just have everybody in Norton have some sort of sticker on their car, and then any other car?
And they'd be selling those,
Attleboro, Taunton.
they'd be selling those on the black market right at the border.
We could do like we do in Florida. Everybody's in the county.
Right.
Right.
You're in the
Why do you
county,
think it is you don't like driving through
you don't have
Connecticut?
police, you don't have fire.
Well, like
We could be the Connecticut of
countywide
southeastern
sheriff,
Massachusetts.
Right? That's true.
countywide schools,
That's right.
county, I mean,
Everything's in the county.
I graduated
Thank you, Mike.
in
Thanks,
a
Mike.
county,
Mike.
there were
Good night.
23,000
Thank
students,
you, I appreciate it.
and we were small.
Right?
I lived in a town of 50,000 where we had a
So-
volunteer fire department. Hicksville, Long Island. And
Uh,
to this day, have a volunteer fire department. Think about that. 50,000 people.
They volunteer rescue people too.
Well,
Volunteer EMTs.
Well,
I mean, it's the craziest thing I ever seen.
If they can
It's
get them,
insane.
because that would be what I
That's
was
wild.
worried about.
Yeah.
We have any minutes?
Do you really want them?
It's only 9 o'clock. Let's do it.
So, highway?
Highway?
Side, the
You
one
wanna
we
talk about the
talked
highway
about
budget?
earlier,
Well, is it more important for us to
Do it.
Article 9.
have two highway additions
that.
right now?
Yeah, just,
Or
Pass that.
do we try to at least help the schools
do
take
you
a
want?
step back towards whole?
what?
Do you want it? I know.
Yeah.
You know,
We're
what?
having two
Hey.
conversations.
We are having two different conversations.
Yeah, you and I are having a side, sorry.
We might as well continue the pain. It shouldn't take that long.
I have a run of it, guys.
Okay. I'll leave these here for Steve.
On the minutes that I just handed you, Article 9 is the one that had the, to make it so that they could sign contracts for more than 3 years. We had that discussion tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The minutes that I wrote in here, I'd like to get your opinion on them, because I started quoting some of Dr. Baeda's concerns about the transportation and all that, and it got very confusing. And when I spoke to Mike tonight, he said it's really more about just, in general, getting approval to make a contract for a longer period. So if you guys can say it's okay for me to take that off, or how you want me to write that, mine's scratched out on my paper. I think I got down in the weeds.
An in-law apartment and they attach to the one roof.
See what he says.
Yeah, of course.
Again, that would be more on, I'm not building that. I'm not on the house.
But when we say,
I don't think it's like
On page 5, the minutes we reviewed for April 8th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Not 2019. Remember how we were joking on Monday night? They were from like a year ago.
No, those were the ones I did. They were from 2019.
Oh, then which one of these? Okay.
The one above.
The two above.
Oh, never
Two
mind.
above.
My
The
mistake.
dates are very close.
Very confusing.
It is. I'll be so glad when these are done.
Yeah, I did do April 8th, 2019, and make that error that Walter pointed out. Even though I wasn't here, so I'm not correcting it.
So unless someone else has an idea on your Article 9,
Yeah.
third line down, we'll have a total by the town meeting, period. I myself would then cut the rest, because that's when it kind of went sideways.
Once I go that way, it's tough to get me back on track.
Yeah.
So,
So he was talking about, you know, the term limits for the contracts, and he was concerned about the transportation. That was what was kind of pushing
right.
that article. But then beyond that, he was kind of going down sideways, and we were asking questions. And
Right.
so that kind of got off the Article 9.
So you're saying keep Mr. Unit's called Baeta to address this. Mr. Baeta spoke about transportation bid being impacted with a total by the town. He'll have a total by the town meeting and then get everything else out of there.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because that's not relevant to the article.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
No,
That's me, but
I'll fix that.
No, that's right.
And
No,
bring
I think
that.
that's fine.
others
Really
can
good call.
amend.
Yeah, it wasn't relevant.
Fix and re-sign. Okay. Next. All right, I also have one for April 10th.
Well, we have to
Act on this yet.
Oh.
have to act on this, and I know it's past 9, so I don't want to get yelled at.
All right.
Well, you know that it's past my bedtime.
Also, under Roman numeral 5, there's a minutes for April 8th, 2019 reviewed, payment in lieu of taxes, not payment in lieu of services by Mr. Smith. I don't believe that was me. I think that
I think
was
that was Walter.
Walter.
Wasn't it?
Mr.
Yeah.
Eichel.
I only watched it on TV, but yes.
Okay, so I'll fix that too. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
Do,
Aaron?
Mr. Moderator, Jesus.
Whoa.
So,
Look out.
God.
He just got a new job.
Fried. What time is it? Fried. Good Lord.
Is this about making a motion on the minutes?
No.
Then hold off.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm waiting for.
Oh, I thought we were done with that.
Minutes is amended.
Second.
Motion and a second to accept the minutes of April 22nd, 2019, as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? One abstention. Aaron?
Hey, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to move $82,500 from the highway budget to the school department and hope that those positions can be done after fall meeting.
82,500.
That was the cost of covering the 2 new hires at the highway department.
Which he wanted for basically summer work, which was the cemeteries, the mowing, all that kind of.
it was year-round.
But the need
Need it right
was,
now.
hey, I got all this work in the summer, so if I get these 2 guys to do this simple stuff, and not
Be
to
up to
insult
speed.
anybody who does, yard work or anything.
We know what you mean.
Understand that these are full-time,
Yeah.
Right,
they're year-round.
right.
We got a second.
I don't have a second.
Second.
I have a second now.
Karen?
Paul?
I cannot vote for this tonight because I do not think it is appropriate for us to vote these kinds of things without the presence of the town manager. Town manager were here, I would say we can go ahead and consider this. But I don't think that you can have somebody who is responsible for putting the budget together, bringing it to us, who can give us more information than any of us have on our own. I just think it's very inappropriate to.
I have another thing. When these people came before us, they explained their position, okay? We all listened to it, and then we all voted for the budget, all right? To start nitpicking every budget that we went through to get 80,000 here, 10,000 there, 4,000 someplace else, okay? That's, to me, that's not the right approach to the plan. So I'd be adamantly against it, whether we voted with in front of the town manager, without the town manager, or out in the parking lot. Okay?
I understand what Tom's saying entirely, but I have to say that after this specific vote, at the time of this specific vote, I asked if we could look at other budgets before we started voting for this budget.
I agree with
Because
that.
I wanted to make sure that everyone was getting what they needed before we gave 2 new headcount to one department.
So,
And we, at that time, determined we could reopen it for conversation.
Absolutely, we said that. I said that Monday night.
So-
And I don't object to reopening it. All I'm saying is I'm adamantly against it.
so, y- right, I'm not,
Is there an opportunity approaching for that?
what?
Will
So
there-
we
will there-
should-
Will there be another opportunity?
Yeah, Monday.
Monday.
We're gonna
We
meet
could have
Monday.
this conversation
Okay.
on Monday.
Because I'm kind of like, I'm with Paul on this, that
I understand that
he
point.
kind of puts it together, so, I'm not opposed to going budget by budget if the rest of this committee wants to do it that way.
You wanna, then I think what you're doing, and I couldn't agree, and it's just the form, I mean, he wasn't here, and I think.
Right.
And
So-
then, if you really want to go budget to budget, department to department, we could open up this and go on and on. I mean,
Well, I
we're-
think-
We're pretty much, and I agree with you, maybe going forward, we should really review these a little closer, maybe one, but I think now, I think everybody's at a settled place, and I think,
I'm not.
okay.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Right,
Well-
I don't know if,
What
I
I'm
don't know
saying-
if everybody's in a settled
Well,
place.
okay, let me go back. I just don't think it's right now to address it. Monday night, I think,
Bring it up
you
again.
want to bring it up Monday
I
night,
don't
I
think we
think.
have
that-
anything on the schedule Monday night anyway. What do we got? A couple of articles?
Yeah.
Yeah,
At most.
yeah.
Yeah, I hear the point loud and clear about the presence of the town manager. I think it's a very good point, as
Start
long
at-
as we'll have the opportunity to kind
We ought to
of
start at
wholesomely
7
go over
o'clock
this.
with the discussion,
Yeah.
so that we get it done before my bedtime.
This is the time to
6 o'clock.
look at
Yeah, and there's no reason why you
Yeah.
can't open up any article,
any,
any
right,
budget
right.
or anything. I mean, we talked about that Monday night.
I mean,
I'm not objecting you to opening up, I'm just telling you I'm adamant against it, but that's,
Right.
that's your constitutional
That's-
right. I'm not against you opening it up, I'm just against the change.
And I'm not against, I'm not at all against opening it up.
Sure.
And I was in the camp who told you, we can open up anything.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by that.
And that's true.
And I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with, after putting a budget together and seeing who, what's what
Right.
where, to now be able to sit back and go, okay, I know what my number is, and maybe a person here or a person there this isn't the exact time to fill those positions.
Right.
Because I've heard everybody now.
Right.
Exactly.
That's the,
So-
We've always had the opportunity after we finished,
Open it
after
up.
we finished.
We have
Yeah,
done
I-
it.
To do one final review where anybody could open up anything and
Right.
make any
We have
suggestions.
done-
we've also in the past kind of, understood that everybody's requests seem reasonable, or, maybe, we kick one aside, but that most requests seem reasonable, and once they kind of get, based just on their own merits and not part of the holistic budget, that, are we unapproving them now if we bring them back up? Or we already said yes to this, what are we doing? Well, but we never really took it into, never really discussed it in its context of the larger budget in general.
That's right. Aaron, it
As a
doesn't
whole.
matter. You bring it up. It's not a problem.
So
Like I said,
I hope
I'm not
that,
objecting you to bringing it up.
Yeah.
That's not my objection.
so at the risk of creating some tedium on Monday, we will do that.
Monday, we should do it. We have plenty of time. There's nothing on the agenda, really.
So-
Warrant articles, which we don't even have information on.
Right.
So we are past Tom's bedtime. I had a
That was my
motion and
plan.
a second, though, so I need to deal with that, either by someone taking them back, or we're gonna vote for them right now. Choice?
I think we should just table them.
I-
I withdraw my second.
I withdraw my motion
Thank you.
with the understanding that we can be
Bring it up Monday
doing
night.
this on Monday.
We'll bring it up
You're
on
gonna look at
Monday.
these notes tomorrow,
Early.
Pat, and be
Postpone
like,
my motion.
Big X.
You got it, Tom. Thank you.
It's a date.
Okay, are you ready, Mr. Chairman?
I'm ready for what you're about to say.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Do we have more discussion? Oh, please say yes.
That would go with the theme.
I
of
see.
tonight.
It's so tempting.
I think adjournment,
really, really
I think
tempting.
adjournment is like moving the motion on, to reconsider. I think it's unreversible.
There's already been 3 articles.
Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you.
Come with your mask.